Bloomberg Businessweek decided to use a very questionable cover for one of their latest editions. And this cover basically talks about another upcoming housing bubble. Now, let's take a look at the cover, and I'm sure you can already figure out why it's so offensive. It basically has Latinos and black people depicted in the way that they are, and they're grabbing for money. And of course, this has to do with the housing bubble, so it's basically blaming minorities for the housing bubble and not paying their mortgages. I mean, the fact that they decided to publish this and they didn't realize that it would be, I don't know, a little controversial, it just makes me question their judgment. And maybe they knew what they were doing. I don't know. I feel like it's ridiculous to not know that this is bad.
No, it's a little unbelievable.
Yeah.
Because there's so many racist stereotypes in there that it's stunning. I mean, the caricature with the big lips, it's, what is this, 100 years ago? I mean, that's crazy, right? And if any one of them by themselves, you might say, hey, whatever. But every single caricature is that way. Every single person in the house is Latino or black. And to me, actually, the most offensive part is what Anna mentioned in the beginning, that they're blaming minorities for the housing bubble created by the banks. You know what the banks used to call the loans that they would give minority communities where they knew they had exploding interest rates? So they were suckering them into it, knowing that it would explode on them. They'd call them ghetto loans. So the loans themselves were racist, meant to pick on minorities.
Absolutely.
To eventually take their homes away after they already paid all this money because they knew they couldn't possibly pay the exploding interest rate. But they didn't care about that. They were just going to make a commission in the short term, and then that was going to be somebody else's problem later. And it's not that they wanted to particularly hurt minorities. They just didn't give a damn. They targeted them because they thought they were easier victims, right? And then on top of all that history, let alone the racial history of the whole country, you put this cover up in 2013? Now, and the other thing is, Bloomberg Businessweek actually has not been a bad publication in the past. That's why it's weird and shocking. Bloomberg, as a publication, has done a lot of interesting freedom of information requests, has broken a decent number of stories. But how could you have an editorial meeting where no one says, whoa, this is not a little out of bounds. This is way out of bounds. So they did it on purpose, thinking, yes, we'll create controversy, which is,
a horrible way to get publicity. I don't know if that's actually what was going on, inside their minds. But when you look at this cover, what it basically does is it creates a scapegoat for the housing bubble, and it allows people to not blame the banks, not blame the people that actually created that bubble, but blame the people that were actually the victims of it, right? It kind of puts a face to the housing bubble instead of blaming the banks and why it really happened. And that's the part that really annoys me.
Yeah, Bloomberg's publications had done a really good job of divorcing themselves from Bloomberg himself. Now remember, Mayor Bloomberg, there's a lot of ups and downs, right? Mm-hmm. But mainly he makes money off of Wall Street. He sells them Bloomberg terminals, right? And so he has been one of the greatest defenders of Wall Street in all of America. And I don't mean great as in positive. I mean as in he will do anything to protect Wall Street. So now maybe his influence bleeding into the publication a little bit. I mean, I don't think Bloomberg's even this racially insensitive. I know he wants to protect the bankers, but ironically, the one other thing that this cover does is it makes a case for affirmative action. I can't believe that there was a single minority in that meeting for them to have approved this, because if there was, you would imagine, unless they're like a Fox News minority, that they wouldn't say, are you guys sure about this?
Right.
Because this is really bad.
Now, the editor of Bloomberg Businessweek did issue an apology. He said the following: our cover illustration last week got strong reactions, which we regret. Our intention was not to incite or offend. If we had to do it over again, we'd do it differently.
Well, are you not merciful?
Yeah.
Yeah, and look, we cover a lot of racial issues on the show, and some are borderline, and hey, they do a party on Asians and this, and is it this, is it that? And then we joke around and we do a Supreme Court and we, come out on different sides. There's no tough question here. This is definitely blame minorities for Wall Street's problems. And aren't they greedy and they just want the money and that's all they care about? so ironic because that's exactly what Wall Street wants. All they want is the money, and they don't care what kind of damage they cause. So it's hideous on every level, and it's totally inexcusable.